Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask, Learn, Grow, the show where the Reef team answer questions, share insights, and updates from the digital marketing industry. I've got Piotr with me today, one of our SEO managers, and Piotr's going to talk about share some advice and from his own personal experience in the industry about how to start off a successful career in SEO. So Piotr, over to you. What are the kind of top tips? Let's start there. For someone looking to start off a career in SEO.
Certainly. So just a bit of background just about myself for the listeners/viewers. I've been in SEO for about 5 years now professionally, and definitely there's a few tips I just want to fire off to assist anyone who's considering starting a career or maybe transitioning careers, and therefore SEO might be something viable for them. So overall, my top tips would be, number one, just to kind of read up on what SEO really is, get across on, specific guidelines of what Google provides you with. I would say, start following key thought leaders in the SEO space. There's plenty that come to mind when you can just simply search up who to follow on Twitter. There's plenty people on LinkedIn. Plenty of people there as well you can look at. One of the biggest and most popular people in the space is Rand Fishkin, for example. He's been around for a very, very long time, and he's always dropping a lot of good knowledge in that space. A big thing would also be testing and learning. So having your own website, starting it from scratch, and just trying to see what happens when you can try and get it to rank in search results. And you're going to have such a big amount of learning. And when you do start your own website, you will come across the tools that most SEOs use on a day-to-day basis, such as Google Analytics, Google Search Console, then third-party tools such as SEMrush and Ahrefs to name a few. And then basically get your head around these tools that we use, start to test and learn. And then eventually you'll start to come across different facets of SEO, from technical, content and link building. And then once you start to do all of these things, it all starts to fall into place. So you get advice from experts. You can understand what Google's looking for in terms of quality, and you get across the tools, and then you start to implement everything. Everything starts coming together. So definitely those are my top tips for starting a career. And the biggest one would just be once again, starting your own website and then just going from there.
Great. And then you touched on then the sort of three main pillars of SEO, which is like technical, content and digital PR. So for someone new who's only just looking to get going with SEO, is there any particular one of those three where you'd start first, and where might you kind of start with?
Good question. It's very much circumstantial. So example, like if you're starting an internship or some entry-level role and your experience isn't that varied, you may be assigned, a specific section. So, you may be assigned to doing links or doing content or technical. It kind of depends from that perspective. But I would suggest that probably technical is where most people normally start, because most people will start off on having their own website first of all, and then they start tinkering with things. And then that's when they come across Google Search Console and trying to optimize, the page speed, etc. So definitely out of all the main facets, technical is where most people start if they're doing it solo. But if you are working for an agency, it could be any of those main pillars. It just depends.
Okay, great. So does someone need a degree in business or marketing related subject to get into the industry and get into SEO?
Yeah, very good question. And definitely this is quite a common one I see people discuss online. And I would say not necessarily. It kind of just depends on where you are, because by that I mean, if you're someone who's just out of university and has a background in marketing, it definitely assists in getting a foot in the door in terms of getting that entry level or internship role if you're looking at doing SEO. But there are quite a lot of people, especially with COVID happening, where people are changing their careers. Some of their careers are made redundant. Definitely, if you don't have a degree in business marketing, communications, etc., it may not be the end for you in terms of starting a career. Definitely, as long as you can show that you have some skills or experience, anything that you can demonstrate. So definitely, this is why I suggest going back to creating your own website, because even though if you may not have that degree, but you can show someone that I've created a website, I have a basic understanding either of technical SEO, content, or link building, it's definitely, it gets your foot in the door that you can start off in that career and you can apply for that entry-level job if need be, if those are the circumstances that you're facing. So definitely it's not recommended, but it doesn't hurt to have a degree in marketing or communications or public relations, for example.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about a person if you can show, even if you haven't got any sort of formal qualification in a marketing related subject, which I myself haven't, by the way, just to kind of put that on the table. It says a lot about a person, I think, if you're giving up your own time to progress and try and improve your own knowledge and skills through self-development, and then even better if you're adding the practical component to it, like you said, Piotr, with your own website and running experiments and testing and kind of improving over time. That says quite a lot about a person's character, I think, personally as well. What would you say is the basics that you'll need then in order to sort of master for SEO?
Sure. So this kind of goes on the first point that we kind of discussed regarding technical SEO, content and link building. So all of that splits into two main areas, which is actually on-page SEO and off-page SEO. And basically the importance behind that is you need to be able to master these elements, because these are the building blocks of successful SEO. So from an on-page perspective, you would have to understand how content works, content strategies, how that plays a role into developing rankings, for example, and visibility for specific keywords, and how it attracts traffic going to your website or a client's website. From a technical perspective, you definitely have to understand the technical foundations of certain elements such as page speed, etc., where these are elements that you have to look at and to ensure that your website is sound from a technical perspective. And then things such as, like example, internal linking, so how different pages link to each other, and the importance of that. So definitely mastering on-page SEO is one area. And then going on to the flip side of that, there would also be mastering off-page SEO. So these are elements such as link building, for example. This could be local SEO as well to a degree. These are other facets where they also influence rankings and influence SEO from that perspective. And one of the biggest ones is understanding, how to obtain good quality links, the difference between poor and really good link building strategies, and just understanding that perspective. We could do a whole video series just on this topic of off-page and on-page SEO, but definitely I'm just trying to kind of cover it from a very top-line perspective. These are the things you should really look at. And I guess one other element would be, you have your own skills that you got to kind of hone in. So you got to have investigative skills, analytical skills, for example. You got to be able to understand the correlations of, what effort you put in versus the results that you get. So, for example, if you put content together or technical optimizations, how does that influence and benefit your website or client's website or business? Understanding the difference of rankings, traffic, conversions, for example, and just being across everything. So definitely SEO doesn't sound super complex from a top level perspective, but it does take time, and it does get frustrating from time to time when you do something and just you're not getting those results that you're after. And I think everyone that's listening, that's watching this video, who has started their own website, they followed someone else's advice and it just simply doesn't work for them. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong advice. There's so many other micro factors that could come into play. It's just that you have to be patient, and you just have to really hone your craft, learn, refine until it works at such a level that, you can do this for yourself and for clients. And especially if you are looking at starting a career, definitely you will be, KPI'd on the results that you get for other clients, and that's just the way it goes. So definitely it all kind of plays in one role into another. So this is why I suggested at the beginning, starting your own website, testing, learning, reevaluating, and I think that's where that investigative and analytical mindset's really important. Just because someone says something doesn't always mean it works for you.
Yeah, great advice. And it might sort of seem like you're trying to drink from a fire hose initially, because there's so much information, and I remember when I was first started getting into it many years ago, that it can feel a little bit overwhelming. There's that much to learn, but set a handful of goals each quarter, break those down into what you're going to do each month, week, and just focus and just stick at it. And over time, like you say, with experience, can't skip experience. It's just
100%. And I think just one other thing just I wanted to point out is the SEO industry is moving so quickly. Like what worked 2 years ago, what worked 6 months ago, sometimes may not work. Google's constantly changing things, and you just got to be on your toes nonstop. So this is also why I suggested before reading, following people, because there's so much information coming through. It's impossible just for one individual to be across everything. It really is a community, and it really is, sharing information, sharing knowledge, and also, acquiring knowledge from others. And I think that's what makes the SEO industry so different, because there's some industries, for example, like accounting or something, where like things don't change as quickly. There may be certain laws or certain things that may change, but it won't change as quick. So definitely this is a fast-paced environment. And if you're someone that was always on the, looking for a new challenge, this is exactly the industry that you want to be in. New challenges every day.
It hooked me immediately as soon as I started getting into digital marketing. Because for that very reason, there's always new stuff to learn. The learning never stops. It's not just like you do one batch and then that's it. You reach some sort of mythical status. If you stop learning, then you'll quickly go out of date. But that's why at Reef, one of our core values is lifelong learning, and everyone gets a certain amount of time within working hours to continuously learn. And the people that excel, the ones that do more than sort of the minimum within working hours, and just keep constantly feeding your knowledge and skills, but then also obviously running those tests and experiments, and constantly learning from the experience in the ever-changing world that we're in, which is what keeps it interesting. And I'm sure you agree with that statement as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. That kind of wraps up today's call. So thank you, Piotr, for sharing those insights. Enjoyed the chat. Thanks everyone for watching. If you've got any questions about this topic or anything digital marketing related, feel free to let us know. Or if you'd like to ask the team any questions yourself, send them in and we'll see what we can do. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified when the next video is available. Apart from that, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest